Do we have a quorum, Marcia?
We do. Well, we have, yes, 4, a quorum of 4.
All right.
Asha, I started the recording.
Thank you, Barbara.
Welcome, everybody, to the March 2nd meeting of the Barrington Planning Board. As chair of the Barrington Planning Board, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. If I could get everybody to mute their microphones and then just turn them back on when you're ready to speak, that would be very helpful. There's a lot of feedback. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are utilizing Microsoft Teams for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through Microsoft Teams, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing 603-664-0240 or the conference ID to this meeting. We'll start tonight's meeting with a roll call vote. I am James Jennison. I'm the chair. Jeff Brand, vice chair.
Jeff Brand, present.
Steve Diamond.
Present.
Donna Masucci.
Masucci, present.
Hi, Donna. Andy Knapp is not present tonight. He has no power. Ron Allard, I believe he has no power as well. And then we have 2 new people with us tonight. I'm going to have to click on Candace Kranz. Have you been sworn in?
No, I have not.
No. So, and Buddy Hackett, who has not been sworn in as well, but they're going to be new members joining us, hopefully in the near future, as soon as they're sworn in. But here to participate tonight and get up to speed. So Jamie, Jeff, Steve, and Donna, we got 4 for a quorum. We also have in attendance the town planner, Marcia Gassis, and land use administrative assistant, Barbara Irvine. We'll move the minutes to the end so we can get down to business. First up, we have Sunset Rock LLC, request by applicant for site review to increase their operation in Barrington from 83 to 88 acres. Marcia, is that a continuance? Or are they here?
Yes, there should be somebody here though to represent them, but yes, they're.
So good evening, Mr. Chairman. Eric Stevenson from Sunset Rock LLC, present.
Thank you for coming.
So basically, if it's okay with you folks, I'd like to request a continuance for your April hearing. We're still in the process of gathering data to provide to you folks as well as to the city of Dover. It's just taking a little bit longer than we thought. So if we could be granted an extension, that would be much appreciated.
All right. And first meeting, second meeting, are you thinking?
If we could do the second.
The 20th, April 20th. Anyone on the board have questions, concerns, or comments on extending to the 20th?
I noticed in your letter you said April 6th meeting. What's the nature?
I didn't realize you had 2 meeting dates, so if we could take the 20th, that'd be appreciated.
It's up to the board. Typically it's a workshop, but you know, if we have more than one, it's okay to split them up if it's going to take a while. So
I don't have an issue. What do we have on the 6th? I think we've got, isn't Barrington Campground coming back?
Yes, we do. We have the campground.
Yes.
That could take a little while, so it might be good to do it on the 20th.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I make a motion to continue application 236-4-GR-20-SR to the 28th.
I second that.
Motion by Jeff Brand, seconded by Steve Diamond. Donna Masucci.
Masucci, aye.
James Jennison, aye. Steve Diamond.
Aye.
Jeff Brand.
Brand, aye.
Motion carries. We'll see you April 20th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Marcia, before we move on, wouldn't we typically have the fact that the continuance was asked for be part of the agenda for that item in general?
The agenda was published before the request, so it's okay.
I see.
Did you get the email, Steve? That they were, I know I saw something.
Maybe I missed that. It's okay.
Yeah.
So I was just curious what was going on.
Yeah.
After
Yeah, I
that.
reached out to them, Steve, because I saw they hadn't supplied anything yet, so that they, make sure that it was out there. Okay.
Excellent. All right. Next, we have 220-50 RC 21-SR Roy Hurlbert, PEH and Son LLC. Request by applicant for site review to add a storage building, a 5,000 square foot storage building to a previously approved site plan on map 220 lot 50. Do we have someone here for that?
Yes, my name's Joe Coronati. I'm with the Jones and Beach Engineers. I don't know if you can all hear me.
I can.
All right.
Hello, Joe.
I can.
So I'm representing Roy Hurlbert and his kids. They've purchased the building at the corner of Tolan Road and Route 125. It's the former archery shop. And that building, if you may not recall all the details of that past approval, because it was some time ago, it was 1988. But when that building was approved, there was a much larger building was approved by the town, and only half of the building was constructed. And so you may have driven by and noticed that there's construction going on out there. Roy has purchased the property and has opened basically a off-road vehicle type sales and service business at the site. And he has decided to build out the grandfathered vested approval, which is what you see under construction currently if you were to drive by. We've had meetings with the town to discuss this. He's obtained a building permit, and basically he is in the process of just building out the previously approved plan. So the construction that you see is not really why we're here tonight. Can certainly answer any questions regarding that. But Roy has decided that they are going to need some additional storage for vehicles and unconstructed vehicles. These vehicles that show up, you've probably seen snowmobiles, four-wheelers, Sea-Doos. They usually show up in a box. You may have seen them at different places before, and then the service techs get the joy of building those in their shops. So Roy asked us to survey the property and then to obtain approvals for a 5,000 square foot storage building, which is what we've presented with an application to the planning board tonight. And if it's all right or appropriate, I can share my screen and kind of run through the plan if that works for you.
Yep, I think that's the easiest way to do
Yeah.
it.
It's easier.
All
I'm
right.
having a hard time pulling it up.
All right. So I'll start with the plan you're looking at is the old approved plan. This was approved in 1988. As I said, they built roughly. My cursor is quite small. I don't know how to change that. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but they built roughly to this line previously. This is what the archery building ended, and then they built this portion of the building. And if you were ever in there, the archery ranges ran down along this portion of the building. They are currently building this portion of the building here, which is 50 by 100. It's a 5,000 square foot addition. And they're basically building out this site plan currently. The proposal, well, I guess I'll bring you back to this. This is the light brown is the area that that is existing today. This portion here is what they're constructing. The dark gray pavement is what they actually poured for asphalt on the property. And some of these light gray areas are basically just gravel display areas for outdoor display. This gravel drive already exists today. You can, if you drive in there, you can drive around the building and head out. So basically what we're here for today is really just this 5,000 square foot storage building. This is cold storage, no septic, no water, just needs electricity. Has doors on this side of the building and no windows on these three sides because they'll be basically storing, as I said, unbuilt and previously built or recently built equipment in here. So there's no need for windows and all of that. And so it's a pretty straightforward application. I feel the building meets the setbacks. The existing electric line currently runs basically right through where this building is proposed. So they will be relocating the electric around the building. There's a propane tank in the way that's already been relocated out of this area. There's no change to the septic system because there's no running water, no bathrooms, no change in staff because of this storage building. And the septic that's there, it's roughly in this location, is sized. It's more than sized to handle the proposed uses on the site. So there's no change to the septic system, which brings us to stormwater. Tried to keep the stormwater simple due to the nature of this proposed building. So basically all we're really adding to the site is this 5,000 square foot building. The rest of it is already grandfathered and approved, but this 5,000 square feet is not. So we're proposing stone drip edges on either side of the roof. It's a center ridge building that runs basically right down the middle. Water will shed in both directions, and we're basically doing a real deep stone, wide and deep stone drip edge to help infiltrate, basically infiltrate all of the stormwater that comes off of it. The building is quite simple. I'll just switch to as I mentioned, the building plans. It's a roughly a 16-foot high wall for the building, and then a 512 pitch roof. Basically just asphalt shingles, standard clapboards, one man door and a wide door for access to bring a forklift in and out. So the neighbors behind us, which do have currently a, I guess that was on the right plan. The neighbors to the east, I guess, going down Tolan Road. They currently have a wooded tree line in here, and I think may have contacted Marcia and had some questions about the application and concerns about the trees in this area. And there's certainly some, I think there are actually previously planted buffer trees from the approvals from the 80s. I don't know when that building got built. I would assume early 90s. So these trees are quite mature at this point, all along in this area. And the one thing we would, with the addition of the building, we would have to obviously remove some of those trees to build the building. But as far as screening for the abutters and noise, the building is basically a better screen than the trees. There will be, as I mentioned before, there's no windows or doors on these three sides. It's a simple clapboard wooden constructed building. It'll actually provide probably better buffer to any noise or certainly to any light that comes off of Route 125 or cars turning down Tolan Road. And it's going to be a very quiet use. It's only used for storage during business hours. There's no late night usage, obviously, in this business. The site will have a gate across the driveway. There's a little fence shown through here. And we will be fencing down along Tolan Road for site security and along the property here. The property line to basically provides security for the vehicles that are on site. And so they're, I think, a fairly good use of the property, and no variances or waivers are requested. And no state permits are needed either. And at that, I guess I'll stop talking and let the board answer or ask any questions they'd like.
Thank you, Joe. I got a couple real quick before I open it up. Can you tell me the pitch of the existing roof that's being constructed now?
Well, I don't know that. Well, maybe I do. It might take me a second to find it.
From my from one quick perspective of mine, I think that the pitch should relatively match. I think having a flat, more utilitarian building out back would take away from the curb appeal. That I think is a fairly decent looking building as it stands now, and it's certainly something that's very visible from 125. So it's one consideration I'd like to throw out there. The other question I had was, Marcia, do you know if those buffer trees were part of the original site plan that were planted around the back? And if that's contingent on the original site plan, are those something that can be removed in a current site plan?
I was looking through, there were trees that were proposed at the time. They looked more like bushes. Obviously, after all these years, things have grown up. My only suggestion would be things get cleaned up a little bit, you know, in that area. I mean, the tree buffer is definitely is part of it. What's the best way to handle it? Building or bushes? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just would hate to remove a natural vegetative buffer in lieu of a building if it's not prescribed in the original site plan and not appeasing to the neighbors to, you know, I know it's a better physical barrier, but they may want some visual buffer as well from the building itself. And we may look to add trees in the back of that, I think might be something that's worth talking about.
Yeah, Jamie, I think, well, I drove by. I mean, it is treed along the side of it now, I believe. There's all kinds of trees that have grown up. So it's like, do you leave the trees or you take, I mean, they're buffered by trees now was my take when I drove by. Am I missing something? Yeah.
No, I mean, if they're buffered by trees now, but the trees are going to get cleared close to within the property line. And those trees were part of the original site plan as a buffer for that building. And now we're taking away, it kind of, we're subverting the original site plan in lieu of a new site plan, that if that visual buffer was something that's supposed to be in place, it should stay in some way a visual buffer.
Yeah, agree.
And then my third thing was, do you have an idea on what the fence is going to look like? Are we going to have another penitentiary style fence like the Power Sports place down the road?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
my name is Roy Hurlbert. I'm the owner of the property.
Hi, Roy. Thanks for joining us.
Well, no problem. It's a pleasure to be here with you. If I might add a little bit to some
Sure.
of the couple of questions that have come up. Yes, I heard about cleanup, and yes, in fact, I believe that tree line could use some cleanup. It is very tall and very large pines that some of them will be removed, not all of them. I'm going to remove as few of trees as possible to protect the neighbors and the land itself. The fencing, I'm looking at a architectural black, kind of a chain link, but an architectural style which has some appeal to it. If you take a look at the plans, you will see that my intention is to clean the site up. The building is being stripped of the old clapboarding. I'm going to put an attractive clapboard style vinyl siding on both buildings. I am proposing gooseneck barn style lamps across the front of both buildings, not the side or the back to the buildings, to alleviate any type of light splash. I want this to be an attractive spot in the town, to be proud of it. And I've been in a similar type business for 40 years. And I plan on having something that we'll all be proud of, and it will fit with Barrington, New Hampshire.
Thank you.
So that's my intent. My intent is to be a good neighbor. My intent is to cut down as few trees as possible, but also maybe to get rid of some well-established pines that could become hazardous.
Yep.
Especially in days like today.
Right.
An attractive fence, something that you're really gonna like, and some use with some stone to fit into the town. So
nice.
There was another question in regards from an abutter in regards to oils and water and stuff like that. Again, I've been in the car business for 40 years. And I've run dealerships. I don't know if you're familiar with my name. I was the Toyota dealer in Epping, New Hampshire.
Yep.
I will be changing oil inside the facility. The oil will be contained by approved containment and also hauled away by an approved EPA vendor. So again, I plan on making it cleaning this site up, making it look very attractive country, and something that Barrington's going to want to drive by and see.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you weighing in. I'm going to open up to the rest of the board. I think Jeff had his hand up first, then Steve and Donna. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, a quick one with respect to the discussion we just had. If you go back and look at the regulations, I mean, what's lacking and the reason we got so many questions is there should be a landscape plan included with the plans to show us, because, it says the planning board gets an opportunity to look at what existing vegetation there is, what your proposing to cut out and what the final plan will be. So, I mean, one comment that I have here is we really need to see a landscaping plan so that, you know, we can do our job and make reasonable decisions with respect to the buffer.
You can't see okay, you're talking about behind the building. Okay.
You're right, right. The buffer between the building you're proposing and the property line / neighbors.
Right. You can see, and again, I'm not on what Joe was presenting because I'm not that computer illiterate. But I am looking at a set of plans that you submitted, and you see a current tree line, and then you see a dip in the tree line. I guess on demolition plan DM1.
Yeah. I can see that in and of itself, that just shows a tree line. That's not a landscape plan.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, you know, a landscape plan will say, it'll show, here's the trees that we have, here's the ones we're going to remove, here's the ones we're going to add. You know, you're looking down at the top and you see what it is that we're going to plant, you know, what it is that you plan on doing. And then, you know, is what you've got, does it meet the board's requirements with respect to buffering and visual buffering and any suggestions that we might have. So that's something that's lacking at the moment that we really need to see. A question.
I'd like to revert the question back to you. You see what we're cutting out in the trees on the tree line. Let me ask you, what would you like to see?
I think
I don't want to throw something at you that's really not what you had envisioned. So
we need more than just a wavy tree line to tell us whether, you know, what does it look like visually. You said you're going to have to cut out some trees. Maybe there's some dead trees. You've said they've grown tall. So I mean, how much do you plan on planting anything else to provide a better visual border? Or are you just going to use whatever trees are left standing when you get done? I mean, I have no idea, looking at this plan, how many trees there are, you know, what kind of visual coverage they provide for the neighbors at the property line.
Okay, I'm just, Joe, do you have an understanding of what we need to do there, or we have to refer to somebody else?
Yeah, no, I can answer some of those questions. The plan was, because of the way the lot lines are situated and the site is already built. You can see the aerial photograph of the existing property. The Route 125 right away basically runs right down the edge, just off the edge of pavement, and then turns. So all of this lawn area in here and all this landscaping, this little pocket of wetlands over here, all this vegetation, all of this would stay. And the septic system is located right here, so we can't plant anything on that.
Right, but if you look at where those poles are, and
yes,
which is to the east of where you're building that addition onto the building currently, then there's going to have to be some cutting in there, you know, given the location, because you're going to go 50 feet plus to the east of that driveway, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so,
yep.
You know, the question is, you know, from, say, the top of the building down to, in that area, and then you go up to the northeast, right. You know, and then along that tree line there, you're talking about doing some cutting. So what is that, you know, that visual buffer going to look like? What are you going to be left for trees? Are you going to have to plant any more to provide an adequate buffer?
Well, I'll show you a couple more exhibits too. So this lot is also zoned commercial. Just so you know, I don't want to. I know they're residentially owned currently, but I just wanted to make the board know that this is a commercial lot, not a residentially zoned lot.
That's because it's within 500 feet of 125, correct?
I would think so, because your the zoning sort of runs past the lot.
Right, so yeah, the commercial zone along 125, Marcia, isn't that 500 feet?
It probably says somewhere on
Yeah,
this, but it seems a
yeah.
little variable.
Yeah. It goes back about 500 feet, but those lots definitely is zone commercial.
Right.
Doesn't mean that the buffer isn't necessary, but.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, the board knew it wasn't a residentially zoned lot.
Well, maybe, you know, so that we don't spend an excessive amount of time on this discussion, is maybe you could get in contact with the town planner, Marcia Gassis, and she could provide you an example of a plan, you know, that would tell us. Now, see, it looks like on this plan, and that doesn't seem to be one that I have.
No, this is something we just went out and did when we did some work on site. We located the trees.
Yeah, so if you take that, and you're going to take out a major portion of the current tree line there in order to a number of trees along that building. So it's, if you take this plan and then say, here's the ones that are going to be removed, and then you show, and here's what we think that we need for planning to maintain the visual buffer, that's the kind of thing we're used to seeing.
Is the board's thought that we need to add plantings on the back side of this? We have a slope in here. To make the grades work, we have to deal with about 3 feet of grade change.
Right. Well, I'm thinking more along the lines, if you took everything, and this is just my personal thoughts, the rest of the board will have to comment. My personal thoughts are, if you look at all the pines that you'll be taking out within the building area and that sloped area, you're simply leaving a number of trees of, you know, 6 to 8 trees that are to the east of that area. And there's going to be some fairly large gaps there. If you look at the middle of the building, that if you take out all the trees within the work area, you're going to end up with some gaps. And what do you do to fill in, what's necessary to fill in the gaps and maintain the visual buffer?
And to that, I mean, you know, the regulation reads that you can use a combination of, you know, visually appealing fence, not the chain link, but fence, bushes. It alludes to the idea of a 75% visual opacity up to 6 feet tall, you know, for the abutters. So it's something to be considered. If you take that right back to the property line and there's nothing left but what's on their side, it may require additional screening. And I think that's.
This is Roy Hilbert again. If you see the fence that we are proposing, we are stopping it around the, I think, southeast corner because of the trees, feeling as though that we won't need extra security because of the amount of trees we are still leaving. If the town would like me, after the fence is down, to continue that down the abutters line with maybe a stockade for security, because I don't want to leave it open to theft.
Right.
So I'm either going to use the trees that are left, or I'm
But,
going to fence.
yeah, Mr. Herbert, what we're trying to say is that from the plans, we can't deem whether you're leaving enough to make a visual buffer, or because we can't just leave it up to, you know, the applicant in any situation. We have to have some insight as to what visual buffer is being retained, and if we deem it to be enough, or if we need to ask you to add more. And when we open up the public comment, hopefully we'll get some input from the neighbors saying, you know, because from that picture, I can't tell if you're taking it all, or if you're taking, you know, you're leaving 4 trees and you think that's enough. But, you know, that's why the landscape plan with a specific fence that you plan to use, trees that you're going to remove, and then, you know, what's left kind of gives us an idea. And then we can say, okay, well, yeah, they're leaving quite a bit. That's enough. And we can just leave it as is. But if what you think is enough and what we think is enough may, you know, not bridge a gap.
Understood.
The only thing and we can certainly add plantings behind the building. I'm just, usually I think the building does provide, if it's screening to the building, that's one thing. If it's screening
It
to
is.
125, the building is,
No, it's
That was
screening to the
screening for the building.
Screening to,
All right.
screening from the, if the regulation reads screening to the building, parking areas, dumpsters, you know,
right. So that's
Any
what, we'll certainly
Genera-
provide a landscape plan and add some
Yeah.
trees. It's not a
Okay.
problem. Not,
All right, some other questions. Regulation 3320 says that you show on the plans all abutting land uses that are less than 300 feet away from the property line. Are there other building structures within 300 feet of the property line that are not shown on the plans?
you mean off 300 feet away from our property?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we're not allowed to survey neighbors' properties,
they're-
but but
I-
there are other businesses within 300 feet for sure.
Okay, well, there should be an overview according in Marcia.
Believe in the plans, there's some different that shows the area, even the one that shows the lots. I think there's sufficient on that.
All I know is, what is it? What's the reg? 3324. Talks about,
It doesn't have to be on the plan. I mean, they've got other. I mean, I'm not quite sure what you're trying to, you can see a visual there. You can see the buildings.
There's definitely, there's.
well, on the, okay,
four
so
businesses.
if you go to the regulations, page 14, existing conditions plan, 33, on the next page, 3320 says all abutting land uses within 300 feet of the perimeter of the site with approximate location of structures therein, including roads. So those are supposed to be on the existing plans, the existing condition plan.
Approximately.
We can add a vicinity map that shows
Yeah,
your
that's a
the
vicinity
identical
map.
uses.
All right, so benchmarks are required to be there. I didn't see any, maybe I missed them. You got any benchmarks?
We didn't have to change the septic, so I don't know if we do have.
Okay, those are required to be on the plans, just so you know. That's regulation 35110.
We do have a benchmark. We have the finished floor elevation is listed.
Okay,
That would
you
be our
want to,
benchmark.
then why don't you note that on the plan? Just so you make a note that says the benchmark, that's what you're using as your benchmark. Then there's no question about it. Are there any, was an alteration of terrain permit originally required and given the additional construction that you're doing now, plus the building, would an AOT be required?
No, the original approvals were so long ago that and I don't know if there wasn't, back then it was called a site specific permit. And for this, even if they did have to get a site specific permit on the original approval, it doesn't mean we have to get an alteration of terrain because it's been more than 10 years.
All right, well, what about with the addition? I mean, I don't remember, I was looking for it, but there's a certain square footage of disturbance at which you're required to get AOT. Marcia,
Yeah.
what is that?
The disturbance
I
area
want to
that
say
you need,
100,000 square feet.
Okay,
and our lot's only 87,000.
yep, okay, got it.
There is, I just to steer the board in the right direction. The way I was thinking on this, there are some questions in particular, but I believe even though we do need the landscape plan in order to further discussion and everything, I believe the board could accept it as, substantially complete, because the next step would be, I do feel strongly it should go to Du Bois and King to have the drainage reviewed. One, because we're adding additional, and two, because it just, it was so long ago, it all has to work together. And I just think that would be an important part of the review.
Yeah, I only got a couple more questions, and then maybe I'll save the other ones until after we decide whether to accept it or not, and then we can move on. Just a couple other questions. Lot coverage with respect to impervious surface. I didn't see that listed on the plans.
It is, it'll take me a second to find it, but it's,
I wanted to say it was like
Oh, I
40% or something.
I think it's on C1 at the top, first top of the
Yeah.
notes. I see something. I see maximum lot coverage, but I don't see what lot coverage is.
Right, I saw lot coverage, but I didn't see,
Proposed lot coverage, 34.9.
Okay, got it. Okay, so that answers that question. And the last one I had was, you listed the permit for the septic. Were there any other permits that aren't listed on the plan?
from the previous approvals.
Yes, and or ones that you're going to have to obtain? Not that I know of any, but.
No, there's nothing else that we need.
Okay,
Back then, they got a subdivision approval
all right.
and a construction approval for the septic, but that was it. Back in '88, we don't need any state permits for the
All right.
use.
I'll save my other two comments until later.
All right, Steve, you're up next, please.
Yes, thank you. So the reason why the new building does not show any internal walls is because you do not plan on having any, right?
Correct. It's wide open with trusses to support the roof.
Okay. And is the driveway, the gravel part of the driveway at least, is that one way or not?
I believe it is. Roy, is that your plan, is to have it one way around the building?
Correct. Coming in on the 125 side and looping around and going back out to Poland.
So clockwise?
Yes.
Okay, so in the corner where there's a door, where the farthest from Toland, there's a door and a corner. And I was wondering about sight lines of people walking out of that door and cars or trucks going around the building and
That's
the
an
parking
emerg-
spaces.
That's an emergency exit only.
Ah, that helps. I was still concerned though about people backing out of the parking spaces and not being able to see someone coming around the building.
I think the parking spaces here are intended for the employees.
That's better.
Basically, the last spaces vacated at the end of the day.
All right, that's
Correct.
better.
Yes, they are.
The customers would park up on the pavement in front of the building.
I noticed the parking angle has changed from the original plan. Why did you do that?
What do you mean the original plan? Like the original from '88?
Yeah, the one you showed the picture of the plan, photo of the plan. It showed the straight on parking and this is angled.
Yes, it basically, I think it basically came down to what was constructed versus what was proposed. And they built a little less area back here. So when you look at this plan, they have 18 feet. They don't really dimension the aisle width on this side. You can see this is 24 on this side. But hopping around here a little too much, but they didn't quite build this straight across like you saw on the previous plan. They started to angle it, and we just didn't really feel like we had the room to do a perpendicular parking space with a full turnout. We only have about 17 feet from the back of the parking space to the edge of gravel, instead of the 24 that the town requires for perpendicular spaces. So we angled a couple of them.
Okay, and the next thing, on the new building, the drip edge it sounded like you were going to make it deep, and that's great. I just, my concern is the gravel drive getting wet and potentially sending mud to the Tilland Road. How are you confident that will not occur?
Yes, what we propose is it's not really gravel. It's basically it's a stone. It's basically clean stone, 3/4 inch stone. It's 3 feet deep, 2 feet wide, and there's geotextile fabric around it. So once the water enters this, it'll soak into the ground through the stone, through the fabric. There's no sediment or silt to actually wash out of the stone and head towards Tolan Road.
Okay. Are you planning on plowing this part of the driveway?
Yes, right up against the building, most likely not, except where the doors are, but they will have to plow through the, through this area here. And they'll probably pile up snow in these areas here in the winter.
You might have issues with gravel moving around, something to keep in mind. You
Yes.
talked about power equipment usage. Will there be ever any extended time of equipment being run without a muffler?
No, this is Roy. No,
Okay.
the vehicles are going to be inside the current under construction building, indoors, minimal noise.
Okay.
The storage building we're here for today is just storage.
Okay. And the pines in the buffer, yeah, pines can get hazardous as they get bigger. It looks like those aren't gigantic and they have some needles low down. So you could take the top off of them and maintain them to a certain height. It might look a little unusual. I think it would look good. Some people might not agree, but it would effectively you could maintain it to something that wouldn't get so big to be a hazard and would be an effective buffer without changing the type of tree. So that's an option. The owner asked a question of what kind of buffer would be preferred. In my opinion, evergreen to have visual buffering all seasons. And the paved part of the driveway, our regulations favor frontage roads. Is there provision for the possibility in the future of connecting the parking lot to the next commercial lot to the north? Is that the firing range?
No,
there's another building in between.
there's a wetland. Unfortunately, we have a wetland in here, and we're actually somewhat competing. I don't know if we're competing. They're more into the boats, but they're slightly different uses. But if you look at we did have Gulf Environmental Services flag the wetlands to see if there was any wetlands on site. They are showing this whole area on this side of the property, which is the north is kind of in this direction here, as a little wet meadow before you get to their fence. This is the fence that's separating the two properties currently, and then this runs north.
Yeah, that would be kind of problematic. All right, that addresses my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Donna?
Hi, Joseph. I have some questions. So some clarification. So the back building, the 5,000 square foot, that's just for storage only. There's no repairs or anything going in the back. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay, so just storage. And then I was wondering about lights outside of it, how that will affect your neighbors, especially if we're going to start trimming out some trees in the back.
Yes, we did provide a lighting plan, but the only lights are on the front of the building towards the gravel drive side.
Mm-hmm.
There's no lights on the other 3 sides of the storage building.
Okay. What kind of inside your storage building in the back? I'm kind of interested. What kind of lights are you using inside of that? Are you going to have just, overhead, turn on the switch, Or is there going to be more, different kind of lighting that's going to require more voltage and everything?
I assume it's just halogen, overhead halogen, big halogen lights to light up the inside. There are no windows, so there might be quite a few lights, but they'll all be, you won't see anything from the outside.
Okay, so what I wanted to make sure is that you have enough electric going to that building to make sure that you don't have that kind of snag. Also,
This
kind
is,
of
this is
ventilation?
Roy. We're currently working with Eversource on that.
Mhm.
And again, that will be lighting that is used for minimal periods and not an excessive load.
Cool. That's great. Thank you. What kind of ventilation are you using for the building?
The
Inside
storage building?
storage,
The
yes,
new
sir.
storage?
Yes, sir.
Storage, there won't be any. There won't be any.
There's no
It's
heat
cold,
or
no,
any.
it's cold storage. It's gonna be electric. There'll be some outlets and there'll be lights. That's it. It's a storage building and I elected not to do it in a metal type building. I wanted to do it in a vinyl siding in a gray color that we're gonna match the front building with, along with the lighting and everything else. But inside, it's bare bones.
Okay, and it's going to be on a slab, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
I
So
did find, oh, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
that's fine.
Keep going.
I was just going to ask about the ventilation because I'm kind of.
Can I interrupt, Donna?
Yeah.
Sorry. Let's say that this is construction
Okay.
talk, and I love it, but
Okay.
stick to, if we can stick to application specific stuff, and we can circle back around to that. And if you want to ask those questions down the road, but if you have application specific stuff, I'd love to hear those, and we'll approve the application or not. And then we can get into the weeds if you want after that.
Okay. Thank you, Joseph.
Sorry.
The one thing I was going to add is somebody had asked what the pitch was of the proposed building, and I did find those plans, and it's a 512 pitch as well.
Okay, that was me. Thank you.
Yeah, these are the plans here. So I just wanted to circle back to that before I forgot about it.
All right. All right. If the board doesn't have any other questions, application specific, as far as requirements there, I'd love to hear a motion. And then we can go back to more specific questions after that.
I will make a motion to accept application 220-SO, what is that, 50?
22050.
Yeah, 22050-RC-21- as substantially complete and acceptable.
I'll second that.
Motion by Jeff Brand, second by Donna Masucci. Steve Diamond,
Diamond Eye.
James Jennison, aye. Jeff Brand,
Ray and I.
Donna Masucci.
Masucci, aye.
All right, sorry about that, Donna. If you'd like to, if you got other questions, I didn't want to cut you off, but I just want to get that application accepted as complete. And so we have purview to kind of dig into the deeper stuff if you want to now.
If I might suggest, I think I've got a couple of questions. Donna's still got some more, but they're specific to the plans. Maybe we ought to open it up for public comment, which based on that comment, then we might have more questions and then can consolidate those and ask them after public comment.
Does that work for the rest of the board? All right, we'll open up public comment at this time. If there's anybody that wants to comment, you can either raise your hand or speak up. If you're muted, *6 if you're on the phone, or click the microphone button. And if two new members have any questions they'd like to ask at this time, we're happy to take it, field any of those as well. Hearing none, I will close public comment. Oop, I lost you, Jeff.
Before you do that, Jamie, maybe Marcia can read the comment that we got, or question, public comment via email.
Yeah, I can do, hold on, Jeff, I'm listening. Barb's trying to tell me something. I'll read that in 2 seconds. I apologize.
Okay.
Ian.
I just think that ought to be part of the public comment record.
Yes. All right. I will open up public comment again, and I will read this. Thank you, Jeff, for pointing that out. I got a little mess going here. Good morning, Barbara. It was written to Barbara. Thank you for taking my calls and the opportunity to share our concerns. Here's our question. When the engines of the vehicles are cleaned and or oil drained, will there be an approved oil basin to collect and dispose of the used oil in the approved manner? Second, the bottom line is to make sure that no waste oil seeps into the ground. Our main concern is that the common water table in the area from which we all get our drinking water does not get contaminated. And lastly, are the trees being cut down? I think we've covered a few of them. So if you could possibly on the site plan, maybe just give us the disposal method, so we have a better understanding for everybody. Mr. Herbert had mentioned that it's an approved vendor that takes it away and it goes into proper basins. But maybe if we just make a note of that on the plan. While I got public comment open, I'll see if anybody wanted to add. I will also make note before I close public comment that there was the possibility that there are neighbors across the street that are in a difficult situation tonight that may not have been able to attend. There's some activity going down at the manufactured home site. So I don't know if anybody there would have commented or called in, but I think they're being evacuated from their homes. So hope they're all well, and just to keep in mind that there may be other comments or questions that some of those residents have. So at this time, I'll close public comment and then open it back up to the board for their questions. Thanks, Jeff, for pointing that out.
You're welcome, Jim.
All right. Did you say, Jeff, you got your hand up? You have some more you want to?
Yeah, just a couple of other things here on. You did give us illumination, a plan for around the building. I will note that the requirements, site review requirement regulations 3.8 parents 5 require that you show the illumination and the figures on your elevations. I think that's sheet A2. You're supposed to show where the light is reflected. Now, I understand that it's kind of because the lights are actually going to be between two buildings. However, that is a requirement for that to be on the plans.
It's a requirement to be on the elevation plans or in the plan set?
On the elevation plans. You're supposed to show the location and what the luminance will be on the side of the building as a result of the light fixtures.
All right.
So that ought to be on. Yeah, so that ought to be on A2. I always try to make a point to look up and make sure that I can reference the requirements so you know what I'm talking about. So it's in site review regulation 3.8 parents 5. And I guess the last thing is, and this, it has to, one additional comment is, and this has to do with the planner's comments. I think that, you need to show where you discussed this briefly, but you need to show in the plans where the snow storage area that you are proposing that to be. We talked about the landscape plan, and I guess the last thing would be, there was a question in the town planner was supporting third-party review by Dubois & King because of the additional impervious surface and the submittal of the drainage plan, and I support setting it out for third-party review. That's it.
I have a couple of things. Secondary containment for gasoline storage, if any. And I was surprised to learn a while back that apparently concrete, this is mostly a thing with gas stations, but it's not necessarily a truly impervious surface, at least not against gasoline. So secondary containment.
We,
This is
secondary
Roy.
containment, oh, sorry. I'll let you go, Roy.
Okay, you're talking about gasoline storage? Am I here? Heard that right? Gasoline storage is going to be in an approved, contained, small, very small quantity. How do I describe it? It's a gasoline approved small quantity. Almost, you picture something like a large rolling suitcase with a handle, which would be an approved storage of small quantity that would be on site.
When you say small quantity, what are you talking? 15 gallons, 20 gallons?
Think less. Probably 8 to 10 gallon, a large rolling suitcase style, approved storage piece of equipment.
Storage container, sure.
Yeah.
That's great. I ask because there are in the area leaking underground storage tanks that are a water quality problem. So small tanks, I believe, are exempt, so that's fine.
I'm sure. I know there'll be nothing below ground.
That'll be stored within the building too, I presume, right, Roy?
That would be in the repair center, not in the storage building.
Right. So not outside and
Nothing outside.
Donna, you good?
No,
Okay, go ahead.
I'm waiting, let you guys do your thing. So I was wondering about signage and dumpster. I've been looking for the dumpster on this thing. Am I missing it? I mean, I have bad eyes, I really do.
Well, it could be overlooked because of the other stuff was approved already, and they're just kind of looking at that one building, so it kind of
right. It's exactly
overlooking some of the other stuff. But
And the signage,
signage we do have. It's
Signage I can answer. We've already got a sign permit for on the roof where the current sign is. And I am also having a highway sign that meets the setback, meets the height, and is under the square footage that is proposed. I thought it's on C2, out right at the end of the parking lot, the center of the lot facing 125.
And you'll be getting a sign permit for that, correct?
I will, yes. I'm waiting for the sketches to apply. But we will be well under the signage because all said and done, you got a 200 foot, 200 foot building. The building inspector said there's no way I could put enough signage on that place. So, and I don't intend to. I'm going to have a sign, again, to fit into the town and to fit into the look that I want, which I like. I'm going to not going to have the typical box backlit signage. I'm going to have a sign that's similar to what you see with some lights shining on it because I want to have the country effect. That's what I'm going for.
that's what we're looking for. Just one more question, and Amy will probably shut me down. What's your hours and your days of operation?
8 to 5, Tuesday through Friday. 8 to 1 on Saturday, closed Sunday, Monday.
And to follow up on Donna's, are those on the plan, Joseph?
They're not, but they will be.
Good one, Donna. I won't shut you down. And circling back to one of Donna's, do you have an exterior dumpster on site currently? Or will you? And,
You know, that's a good thing, you know. We will. There isn't one now. They had a trailer out back there, an 18-wheeler trailer, where we are talking about putting the employee parking. And I thought about this as well, Donna, so you're not missing it, because I didn't see it myself, and I'm thinking about putting it in on the left, maybe in the V of the corner of the existing building.
when you determine that, if you could add that to the plan, that would be great. Just now that Donna brings it up, I'm sure, as you know, there's quite a bit of dunnage that's produced from unboxing all those crates, and to avoid piling it as some might do, and I don't presume that you will, but just to make sure it's not becomes a eyesore.
And ensure that any runoff from that dumpster is going to be contained so it doesn't end up, in the neighbor's lawn there.
Did you have another one, Donna? Sorry.
No, I'm done.
I'm going to read from the input from police, highway, and fire. Police asked if you're going to alarm the main business, and the cold storage consideration should be given there. And highway says no impacts on highway department side of things. Chief Walker, I don't know if you spoke with him, but noted that cold storage is limited to 12-foot high max. Any storage over 12 feet high requires the building to be sprinkled. You must meet applicable fire codes for storage facilities. Place no parking signs along 20-foot wide driveway to protect the integrity of the required fire lane. Would like to see the driveway delivery traffic to be one-way directional. We talked about that, and I guess signage to note that would be helpful. To avoid commercial vehicle deliveries from backing onto or from the property without signage directing such.
With respect to the 12-foot requirement, did you know of that requirement, and what is your plan?
12, can you?
Elaborate?
12 foot,
Yeah, the code reads that anything stacked over 12 feet high inside a building, so you can have higher ceilings, obviously, but if you stack anything above 12 feet, it's required to have sprinklers installed.
I think that was,
no, I would be 4, 8, I'd be right at 12.
right. the
As
way
long
you
as
see
it doesn't
the
exceed 12.
forklift, you need the extra space for the forklift maneuver, right?
To lift it off the other ones is just,
The
We can add
crates
that
are
as a
4 feet
note.
high. The crates are 4 feet high.
so you'll be right there, cutting it close, so. Just
And it
want to
doesn't
make
mean
sure you,
it doesn't mean I'll have to go that high, but I mean, they are that high.
Yeah, but yeah, as I said, it's a fire requirement, so you just can't stack things over 12 feet. If you do, then that building would have to be sprinklered, which would probably be problematic given that it's cold storage. It would have to be a dry system that you would then hook up to. You'd have to discuss that with the fire chief.
so just, he wanted to make you aware of the requirements so you can plan accordingly.
Mr. Chairman, what was the final item by the fire chief?
Just the one-way traffic, just so
Sure.
you don't
I got that
run
one.
into a yeah, and I think the way I read it probably was misleading. Just so you don't have traffic turning into the wrong one way
Yeah.
then trying to back out onto Toll End Road to come around the right way. Say you had an 18-wheeler that tried to go in the wrong way. So having signage at the end of the road so they know to go one way around to make their deliveries, so you don't have delivery trucks backing up onto Toll End Road.
All right. Yeah, we can do that. We'll add do not enter signs. And,
That does bring up another question, though. You were talking about why you had slanted the parking slots in the back of the building, and it's because they hadn't extended the apron away from the building far enough that you had sufficient space to back out of those parking spots. How is that going to be sufficient in its current configuration, the width of the pavement, to support an 18-wheeler coming around the end of that building?
yes, we have. We actually noted what the minimums are for the minimum requirements on the plan for the aisle width for the one-way travel, and we have more than what we need for one-way travel. Not much more, but we do. And these are all slow moving progressions. This is obviously not a fast moving site. If they get deliveries, they're not daily tractor trailer deliveries. And so they'll basically stock up at the beginning of the season, and there may not be too many more big deliveries the rest of the season. They'll be all small, small UPS trucks and those type deliveries, I would assume, going forward. But there's plenty of room to go around the building the way you can now, and the way the previous owner did it as well.
Excellent.
And we'll add some of the notes that you mentioned from the department heads: the one-way travel, the height of the storage, the no parking in the fire lane, things like that.
Perfect. Steve?
Yes, I noticed from the drainage analysis that it's quite sandy there, which is not surprising given the location. I don't know if you're intending to try to keep any grass alive in the area, but whatever the water requirements of your landscaping end up being, you might want to think now about if you want to have some sort of rainwater catchment in order to water it, because it would be expensive and a lot of water if you were trying to keep some things alive with well water.
With the irrigation, yeah, it's all lawn now, but I do suspect it's not the type of lawn you want to cut very short in the middle of summer and let it burn up.
If we have more droughts like last year or the last few years or worse, you might not be able to keep a lawn very well.
Right.
Something to consider.
Well,
All right.
most of the lawn is all setback, the setback area on 125 that we are going to maintain and have again, I just keep reiterating that I'm going to have an attractive site. I know you folks want to have it in writing or whatnot, but
Well, we
have something that the town's going to be proud of.
Well, we appreciate that. Yeah, we appreciate that, and it's just that we need to do our jobs and make sure that it's all written down so that everybody knows that you're doing the right thing and we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And part of why I bring it up is sometimes, if droughts get worse, doing what we've done in the past is not necessarily going to give us the same results.
And it's certainly cheaper to do it now than, as far as water catchment, it's certainly cheaper to do it now than it is after the fact, and you realize you're pumping your well dry. So it's always good advice. And so if the board has no more questions, we're looking to continue this application. Oops, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Jamie, I just want to know, Joseph ticked off a few of the things with respect to the other departments that he was going to add to the plan. I just want to note there were other things like adding the illumination in the lights on the elevation. We also said that we were going to need a landscape plan. We're going to show the buffers. We're going to add the hours as a note. And there was one more. What was it?
Snow storage.
Snow storage.
Yeah.
And dumpster.
Dumpster. Yeah, the dumpster location where that was going to be. So those are additional things that we said needed to be added to the plan.
Will the town send the plans and drainage to Du Bois and King, or do you want us to do that?
You can actually send the set, but please CC me on that. They're going to come up with an estimate for the cost to review. My understanding from the board, and I would agree, is they just need to look at the drainage. I think the board's done a pretty good job at looking the other elements. So I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to make sure we coordinated that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't see a need for a third-party review beyond the drainage.
Agreed.
Is your contact Jeff Adler?
Yeah.
All right.
What do we think is a good continuance date? Marcia, do you have a suggestion?
I would suggest at this point, probably the first meeting in April. Okay, as long as you get those plans out to D&K quickly, I would think so.
Joseph, does that seem acceptable to you?
Yes, it does.
So that would be April 6th. So a continuance to April 6th would be in order.
So we'll have that in the campground as of now.
Okay.
I make a motion that we continue this matter to the April 6th meeting.
I second.
Motion by Steve Diamond, seconded by Jeff Brand. James Jennison, aye. Donna Masucci,
Masucci, aye.
Jeff Brand,
Brand, aye.
Steve Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. We will see you April 6th. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. See you
Thank
then.
you all.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Next.
Sorry about that screen in the middle of it, Jamie. I'm still trying to figure. I didn't want to click anything off because I was afraid I'd lose it.
Oh, no worries on my part. I'm half blind. I'm looking,
Making me
staring at my
crazy.
stuff. All right, next up we have Dove Development Group, 235-1.1 and 3-TC21. Chris Berry, I believe. How you doing?
Hey, Chris, you there?
Must have his speakers turned down. Or he's frozen. He might be frozen. He doesn't see any movement.
Yeah, because his crew's there. Hold on.
He's holding very still if he's
I mean, even Candace is spinning here on my admitting, so I don't know what that.
I don't know how to
We're all kind of froze here.
well, we'll give it a second. I don't know how
Hey,
to.
I get a little tidbit while we're waiting. I had to tell Steve this. My daughter delivered triplet goats by C-section.
I thought you were gonna say
She sent me
kids.
a picture. It was the smile for the day. You know what I mean? You got to smile when you see something like that.
There's all
Cool.
kinds of things I can think to say, and I'm saying none of them.
Oh, they're so cute.
It's a dramatic time on the farm.
Hey, this
This
is
time of year, huh? It's kind of early.
James
for it.
Hayden with Barry Surveying.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. Chris got booted, so we're just trying to reconnect right now.
All right, yeah, we saw he looked froze. We either said he was holding really still or the camera
Well,
had frozen.
Candace is still spinning over here. She asked to be admitted, and it's not going anywhere.
Hey, Jamie, is your camera on or not?
My camera's on.
Because I'm not seeing you. I haven't seen you all night, although that's not bothering me a whole lot. But
Is it?
I see Jamie and I see Steve.
I see everybody.
all right,
Yeah. Sorry.
It's a little strange how the images are arranged and sized for me. And I don't necessarily see everyone, but it's decent.
Yeah, you look perfect, Steve. Right in the middle.
Yeah. Holding up top center. Hi, Chris. Can you hear us now?
Yep, I got to sit through that the first part of the meeting and then got booted as soon as I was up. So
for I
Welcome.
have no idea. Maybe it's Steve, but it's just Steve talking about it. I just got everybody's picture just came up, so that's good.
Must be a glitch in the Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, because like I said, Candace doesn't seem to be able to.
Get back on. Well, we'll let you get started.
All right, so it's been a little while, so I'll introduce myself. Christopher Berry with Berry Surveying and Engineering, here representing Dove Development Group. And can everybody see my screen or no?
Yeah. Hey, one second, Mark, just as a matter of protocol. So this is a design review. Do we have to accept the application to get into the design review or not? Or do we, Chris makes a presentation and then we accept it for design review?
I'd still have you accept it for design review. You can do it either way. I'm a little bit more flexible when it comes to design review because nothing in the end technically is binding, so.
Right, I understand.
But you should accept it.
Yeah. So do we want to do that now? Or we let Chris talk for a couple minutes and then do it?
I say we let Chris talk.
All
I don't
right.
think we've ever voted to accept a design review before the meeting started.
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. So this project is located off from Route 9 and is basically the third phase of a previous project that we presented before you. Formerly known as Christmas Lane, was subdivided off from the Christmas Dove. That was sort of the first phase and the first step, and that created a commercial lot at the corner, or expanded a commercial lot at the corner of the former Christmas Lane and Route 9, and created a lot around the Svensson House as well as Christmas Dove, and created a parking easement around the parking lot that is really utilized by the Dove. And then the second phase of that subdivision was actually to construct the former Christmas Lane in the boulevard style that you saw constructed in the last couple of years. It has a boulevard at the front. It contains 2 exit lanes, a raised concrete sidewalk, a small parking array, and some more urbanized stormwater system designs, closed drainage, and rain garden design at the front of the site. And all of that is in anticipation, or was in anticipation of potential commercial development here on the corner. And then really also leading the way to the project that we're going to start bringing before the board as time continues. So this project, just to give a little bit of history, this project received a variance to allow single family style development on this project, with the caveat that a certain percentage of it remained commercial. And that was granted by the zoning board about 4.5 years ago now. Dove Development Group has now purchased the property and therefore the rights to develop the remaining 2 sites that the Svenssons own. So this is 1.1, and I believe the rear parcel is just lot 3. And the first part of the project is really to extend out what was known as Christmas Lane, and we're proposing to do that in a boulevard style, as you can see from the color rendering. And so that boulevard style has 2 12-foot lanes, 1 on each side of the boulevard, and we would continue the raised concrete sidewalk down the easterly side of the roadway onto lot 3-3, and then we would terminate that roadway in a cul-de-sac format. The reason for that is this, the former Christmas Lane is going to be subdivided off and will be a municipally owned roadway. All of this infrastructure has been designed and built so far to be municipally owned, and so we wanted to create an end to where that town ownership for that roadway would be, and where future private development would take place. And so moving into the development, because we're in the town center zone, we have a mixed-use pad site here at the front. This is about an 8,500 square foot footprint for a structure. On the first floor, which is almost partially below grade at the back and full open grade at the front, the site will have commercial space on the very ground floor. And so in more urban style development, which the town center master plan sort of describes, we have some on-street parking at the front, and then we have parking along the side and rear. And this style development is, again, it's more urban, but it's also in keeping with the idea that we don't want large strip feeling commercial developments in the town of Barrington, and we don't want that in our town center, and so we don't want that in our town center on our private project. So we have the majority of the larger parking arrays to the side and to the rear of the site, and then some along the front, and then some pedestrian connectivity to our basically our pedestrian trunk line along the eastern side of the site. We would then connect that pedestrian connectivity to the pad site itself, so that we have sidewalks in and around the entire structure, so that users of the residential units that may also use the commercial activities on the first floor have good connectivity there, and then to ensure that the residents of the mixed-use building also have access down to the Dove, and then any other future commercial projects that might take place at the front of the site. And then in large-scale master planning, I know Marcia has talked about connectivity on Route 9 in the future. And so we want to ensure that our project, even though we are probably ahead of them on a timetable and scheduling standpoint, do connect from a pedestrian standpoint to that central area. So the second, third, and fourth floor of the proposed mixed-use building would be residential style, and so we would have 24 units within that structure. That is permitted as a matter of right. There's no variance required for that, and is encouraged within the town center zoning descriptions. And so you can expect to see some additional mixed use on the site moving forward. I think the only residential and limiting factor for that style development is sewage loading and water availability for potable water. So those are our limiting factors on this site. So what the applicants have decided to do as part of the mixed use project is to take the single family density that was permitted by the zoning board and transfer that to single family attached housing, which is a defined use within your zoning. And so essentially we would be taking the single family aspect and converting it to the single family attached use within the zone. And we would provide for an aisleway up to 25 townhouse style structures towards the middle and rear of the site. Again, this would be accessed through its own roadway, but would also provide some connectivity to the mixed use site. We do that for a couple of reasons, so that traffic moving from one to another does not have to enter onto the boulevard, but also provide for some pedestrian access to and from each site, and then also provide for full access from a fire access management so that a truck could get in and around and out without having to back up or jockey around on a site. So as the board can probably see from the topographic features that we provided in the design review, this site does climb a pretty good slope up to the top of the hill. And so what we're proposing to do is actually fill this roadway system, fill this up, and create a platform for traffic. And then that places us at or above grade. And then we're able to basically chase the existing grade all the way up through the roadway. And that's a nice feature because we don't have any large amounts of cutting or filling in this construction area. So you don't have this manufactured look, this highly commercialized look, or a forcing where you're basically forcing housing units in where they don't necessarily fit the landscape. In this case, we're able to fit the landscape quite well with the style development that we're proposing. So then the stormwater features on site, as I described earlier, all of Christmas Lane drains to a rain garden here right next to the existing Christmas Dove. And so any of the stormwater that naturally comes down to that point we would need to capture, treat, and attenuate prior to discharge into that system. And then we do have additional drainage features that we're proposing. One drainage feature in the center of the cul-de-sac, and then 2 additional drainage features for, again, stormwater attenuation and nutrient removal from the stormwater through the use of gravel wetlands. This project site would require an alteration of terrain permit, so we would file with alteration of terrain. We are on track to finalize soil mapping and test pits on site in the upcoming week, so that we can finalize all of the stormwater engineering and the sewage disposal engineering for the site. We have talked to the applicants about potentially providing access down to this private drive and how that might operate through a gated aspect to allow for the potential for fire trucks to loop in and through in the case of an emergency. We can only provide access up to that driveway. We can't guarantee access down the remainder of the driveway, but I know in the past the Svensons have expressed at least the willingness to potentially have a connection and a gate for that unlikely event of an emergency. With that, there's also these buildings are protected. These are required to be sprinkled units. This entire building would be sprinkled, and then each one of these townhouse style structures would be sprinkled as well. So they are protected with that respect. What we don't show in the color rendering is this will be serviced by a community well, and that will be placed well off into the rear of the property. So it would be out in this vicinity as you're looking at it from a wooded state. So well out behind where the project sits, we would need to construct a small road and water line within that roadway to get to the well and the well pump house to provide water to the site. Sewage disposal would be handled through on-site septic systems, and those would be handled either in this rear area here for one small system to handle maybe the mixed use building, or have one larger system be placed on the uphill side of the project so that we meet all of our required nitrate setbacks for the proposal. The site will require a traffic study, and so we're updating the study that was conducted for Christmas Lane, and that will also require an updated submission to New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. No, I'm sorry, New Hampshire Department of Transportation. New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services will also review the well and community well siting and the design and placement of the sewage disposal systems on site. We do have a rendering that we've had prepared. Can everybody see that? So the applicant has taken quite a bit of time, because I know this is really one of the first town center projects that really been brought to the board. And so we want to kind of provide a really good representation of what the massing of this is going to look like. We do have a 40-foot tall structure, which is allowed and permitted by zoning. And then we have the townhouses at the rear of the site. And you can see how they sort of jockey up the slope. And when we jockey a townhouse up a slope like that, changing the grade and each elevation of the finished floors, you can see that we actually also provide for an architectural break in the front face. So we move them in and out from one another so that you don't have just one large expansive face. Additionally, these townhouses are proposed to be much like and much similar to ones that were constructed by the same applicants down in Exeter, New Hampshire. Again, in addition to full architectural renderings and views that we would prepare for a final submission, we could actually provide photographs of how these buildings actually look in a real-time state. So you can see that though it is we're trying to modify, or not modify, we're trying to provide a site that has the town center feel, so an urban center feel to it, but also encompasses a lot of the rural nature of Barrington. And so a lot of the features like taking this road over and creating more of a large expansive landscape area for stormwater features in this area, as well as this corner here. Those are all features that we're trying to bring to the site so that it's not as hard a site, and it looks as though the massing is more appropriate for the area. So I guess with that, I'd be happy to try and answer any questions the board has. This is a design review, so we're looking for input and comment so that we can bring that back to the full design as we rapidly move forward.
Thank you, Chris. Very well put as always. My only real question is, so lot 3 is, there would be no further development on lot 3?
So there's no further development currently proposed on lot 3. This application only focuses on 1-1 and the cul-de-sac on lot 3, but there will be future development on lot 3.
I guess I don't understand you said you took the load density from lot 3 and just put it onto 1.1?
So what I was referring to is the zoning variance permitted 25 single-family housing units to be constructed on these pieces of property. And so what we've done is we've taken those 25 single-family housing units that are permitted, and instead of spreading them out throughout both of the sites, we have just placed them in this central area. The remainder of the project would look at other permittable uses, like other mixed-use buildings that are fully permitted on site. But that's not part of this existing proposal that we have before the board.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear because I'm not following completely, but if it was 25 residential and you're using all those 25 residential, how do I understand that there's more opportunity for more residential use?
The residential, as long as it is on the second floor of a mixed-use building, is permitted with no density requirements.
Do you concur with that, Marcia, that interpretation of the regulation?
Yeah, the idea is, like he said, it would have to be on the second floor because the whole purpose was to encourage the commercial. You're going to have your commercial on the first floor. So that's the caveat. It would have to be on the residential would have to be on the second floor over the commercial.
So Jamie, just to, I guess, clarify the variance a little bit, single-family residential development is not permitted in this zone. And so the variance basically permitted the use of these 25 single-family units. It does not limit the residential capacity of the site at all, but only the variance only permits the 25 units that we show here. So for instance, there is no limit on the amount of residential units that you can put inside a mixed use building. It was only a limit on the number of single family houses or single family units.
All right. I'm just trying to refresh my memory. The way I remember it, and it's been a while, like you said, it was a density increase based on the entire parcel being encumbered upon mixed use. And that may be my understanding, in the direct translation may not be accurate, but that's I'll have to get myself right on that before I because yeah, it's just been a while. But I see Donna's got her hand up as well as some others, so I will open it up to the board. Donna, let's start with you.
Okay, sorry. So this is behind the Christmas dove. How far away from the Christmas dove? Can you tell me, Chris, about how far it is? If I was standing at the Christmas dove and looking towards this, would I see it right away?
Not really, no. So this is the dove here.
Okay.
So can you see this on the screen?
Yes.
I'm circling the Dove building here. So you have about 150 feet of boulevard, if not almost 200 feet of boulevard, before you even get to the corner of the proposed mixed-use building. And then the way this turns around the boundary line, in the landscaping that were proposed here, this is really going to be, I don't want to say hidden, but it will be out of direct view, certainly from Route 9, if not from the parking lot here.
Okay. Okay.
Donna, there's a vicinity map at the very beginning of the plan that I found useful to get my bearings.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. So I pulled that up here too. That's on the first sheet of the plan set in the color rendering. Yeah, and we try and put this vicinity map together so that we get a good feel for how this fits into the surrounding landscape.
Steve, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Chris, I can definitely see your aesthetic sense, and you really know what we like. You've been with us a long time. It's great to hear your presentations. The two areas of slope you were talking about near the residential buildings, uphill and towards the commercial building. What are those grades? How steep is it?
I don't know specifically, Steve. I haven't checked or measured it. If I had to guess, it would be 15 to 20%.
Wow.
So that's just this knob right behind the building. The grades that I was referring to up the roadway here, those were actually able to keep at about 5%.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Great. I thought the commercial building roof, it looks lovely, but it's a lot of flat roof. You might want to consider if you really want that, but there's pros and cons. Possibilities of future connectivity. I love the circles and the kind of the park-like effect of that. That's beautiful. Especially the far circle north, the northern circle. What are the possibilities for connectivity, and can you ensure that your well placement and so forth does not obstruct the possibility of creating essentially a frontage road to 125?
We can certainly take a look at that. I will tell you, we've just finished. Well, here I can pull up some of the existing features. So just to give everybody a little perspective, this is the existing conditions that we had completed at the time of the design review submission. And our proposed cul-de-sac is sort of right here in this flatter area. And so further on down the property, and I'll scroll down the page, you get to the tip of the site. And so our proposed well is out here. There are a pretty good amount of wetlands that we're actually going to have to navigate around to get to our well site. So I can't guarantee that we won't do anything that precludes connectivity, but there also might be some natural features that preclude that connectivity moving forward. Just to let you know that I am thinking about that, though, Steve, we've talked with the applicant about creating an access here off the western side of the cul-de-sac to provide some connectivity into two larger, also vacant parcels of land over here. You can look at if you look at, again, back to our neighborhood, what we call a neighborhood plan, that provides really good access to this marooned piece of property and could potentially provide access to a piece of property that's actually the subject of a subdivision currently. So there are definitely future connectivity potentials, Steve. And we want to make sure that this town center thrives. And so we're not going to intentionally do things that prohibit its growth in the future.
Cool. I appreciate there could be some wetland problems that would get in the way, but I noticed there's the railroad right-of-way nearby. Yes. And on contour going to the north, it seems somewhat intuitive that a road could go that way. That would be sort of straight. So the main traffic concern, I understand, is 125. So my thinking around frontage is north.
Yes. Yep.
All right, Jeff, you had your hand up.
I did. Yeah, One thing, when you're talking about the loop with the detention pond, it's on the north. But if you start putting septic fields and wells up there, it seems like you're going to have limited development potential up in lot 3 when you're using that, for your septic and water systems. Is that true?
It's true to a point. That piece.
Now you're talking wetlands on top of that, right?
Right. But that piece is 16 acres. So when we're talking about an effluent disposal system that, or multiple EDAs that will handle this type of flow, we will chew up a good amount of real estate with those, but there will be some developable potential left after that.
Well, with respect to the previous discussion, if you look at that aerial map, and that's what there's I don't know, there's a couple buildings off of 125. There's a drive in there. It almost look on the north corner of the property that access for development in the north part of the property in that big triangle up there, coming off of 125 on the drive on the access that already exists for those two commercial properties. That if you were able to get across I guess there's a right of way there. Or is that
Railroads. The railroad tracks.
It's the rail trail.
Yeah, but access to that big upper triangle there off of that road that already comes in for access to those two commercial buildings off of 125 would almost be better than trying to come off that north loop on the current project plan. It's just, that wasn't one of my original comments, but all this discussion. Just a question, you talked about development in the lots around the lot 1.1 you're developing. Is the parking lot on the existing community way going to be maintained? That isn't going to affect that in any way?
No, that's not even on our site, so we really have no.
Okay.
We're not proposing any changes to that. Nope.
All right. Hey, just a question. If you can go down to a couple of details, there's a dotted line that runs through several of the plans. And I just, looking at the legend, it just didn't make any sense. I just am curious as to what the line is.
Any idea what
Sheet or
plan?
two?
What's that?
Can you scroll down a sheet or two? Okay, right there. Any one of those. Well, no, go back up again. Go up one. Yeah, okay, right there. See where your cursor is? See that line right there? Yeah. What is that?
It's a NRCS soils line. So we pulled in the county soils so we could kind of see what type of soil groups we were working on just for pre-planning.
Ah, okay. Because I couldn't, like I said, I was looking at the legend. I was trying to figure out what that line was. It didn't make any sense that it wasn't an abandoned property line or anything like that.
No,
Yeah.
Cat jump.
Okay. Hey, so in your write-up, you talk about, I believe it's High Point Road or Drive, where you talk about it's sloped to the center of the roadway. So can you explain that? Where exactly is this sloping, and something about that sloping to the center of the road, that just doesn't, from it being in New England, that sounds problematic, and having drains in the middle of the road.
So these buildings, it's a little counterintuitive because, and we did this on another project here in town. So you basically create, instead of having a crown in the center of the roadway, you create a sag. And the reason for that is you have a negative slope away from this unit and a negative slope away from this unit. It wants to create a natural low point in the middle. And so if we were to have a road that is 24 feet or 12-foot lanes that's crowned and then try and bring that up into positive slope into the townhouse unit, you would have, I wonder if I can do this. Yeah, look at this. This is great. This is like me being at a planning board meeting with my hands, Jeff. So you'd have something that looks like this. And that's really very hard to construct and pave. And so what we're proposing is something more like this. And so you'd have a catch basin in the middle of the roadway, and flow basically flows right into the basin instead of having this up and down cross-sectional look, which is very, very hard for the pavers to actually pave. Most of that work would have to be done by hand because you couldn't get a paving street through there properly.
Are there other areas in New England where this has been used? I understand what you're saying. So you're trying to get the flow away from the buildings. There's also a slope that you're going up a hillside there. So you're going to have the water running essentially from the high point up where I guess I don't understand. You said that slopes up. If I'm looking at it slopes, you're going north. It's slope. I thought it sloped up. Is that correct?
Yep. So high point is here. Low point is here. So all of this slopes to this location here.
All right. So what's the detention pond up at in the circle there then?
This will capture all of the flow that comes down the roadway in sort of this format. So all of the flow that comes down like this, and all of the flow from the roadway flows into that detention stall there. So all of this flow flows into that.
So the water flow, will there be any flow out of that upper detention pond into the drainage system, or is that you're going to have infiltration there, plus you're going to have the drainage system down the slope?
Little mix of both. So you'll have infiltration along the way, but here again, all of this will flow into the center of the cul-de-sac. It will then be discharged into the central pipeline, and we'll propose detention systems along the way so that by the time it gets to the bottom of the slope, we're not trying to do all of our treatment and all of our detention at the bottom. We try and do it along the way to progressively treat and attenuate flow.
So even if you had some type of blockage of your drains in the center of that roadway, given the slope, you're still going to have downward flow as it's melting?
Yes.
But you said when you're going to intersect with Community Way, formerly Christmas Lane, there is down where your right-hand lower circle is, there's a rise to get up to Community Way. So you're not going to end up with water flushing down onto Community Way. What about into the parking area behind the pad site?
This is actually elevated. You have to go down slope to get to High Point Village Drive. So this is actually one of the more elevated pieces of this pad site. So let me see if I can just illustrate that. This rear parking lot, Jeff.
Yeah.
This is above the first floor grade. It's a little hard to see in this rendering, but this first floor grade is below grade of the rear of the building.
Okay.
So from the front of the building, you have 4 stories, and from the rear, you have 3.
So the actual low point here, looking at that rendering, there's a blue car at the beginning of High Point Road Drive, whatever it is.
Yep.
That's down there just above the north of the intersection of Community Way and High Point. So that would be essentially the low spot.
Yes.
Of the entire area.
Yes, exactly.
Draining from the back of the pad site to that area, draining down the hill from the residences to that point.
Yes.
And there would be some treatment along the way. And it looks like you've even drawn in a little pond there to the right of that blue car.
Yep.
So that's where the water would accumulate in going over inside the circle, where there's it shows greenage there, but isn't that a detention area on the plans?
Yes, but we would, in addition to it being a detention area, we would green it up to make sure that it doesn't just look like a crater in the ground.
Okay. All right. So I guess I understand that. I just had concerns about, blockage of that center drainage system in the winter time, and ice accumulation that would be problematic for the residences. So you talk about that, I believe High Point is supposed to be you're proposing it be a private drive, whereas the extension of Community Way would be a public road. Where's the boundary? Is that the boundary at that intersection?
Yeah, so the boundary, so we're physically proposing, oh, that's not working very well. Well, all right. We're proposing, oh, there we go. Look at this. This is the proposed boundary line, not quite so jagged. My mouse is not working well. This is a proposed boundary line of the roadway. And so we're physically going to create just like you would in a residential subdivision, a right-of-way around the roadway. And from that point, moving forward or moving west would be private, and this would remain public. And we want to try and keep the infrastructure, public versus private, separated to the extent practical. How difficult is that going to be? Because then you're going to have to maintain High Point. It's going to have an agreement between the owners. Now you integrate that into the intersection of the pad site. That sounds like, from a legal and maintenance standpoint, that could be complicated. It's really not. I mean, the language is complicated, but the practicality of it is that one maintenance company really is hired to handle all of this, and it's really treated like one site. I know I say this a lot, but we do this all the time in many, many other highly urbanized communities. And so it's not something that's foreign to us. Additionally, at this point, the owners are proposing to keep and maintain most of this infrastructure for themselves at this time.
Well, it's just, the concern is you've got an intersection here with what you assume in the long term will be a public road. So the town of Barrington will end up owning that upper detention pond, will end up owning that roadway. But the rest of that drainage infrastructure is not maintained properly, then that could adversely affect the portions that the town is going to have to maintain.
Yes, and so oftentimes in instances like this, we have basically agreements with the municipality that say, in short, you have the right to go in and maintain these things, but not the obligation. So that in the event that a landowner becomes negligent, the town does have the ability to go in and ensure that their infrastructure is protected.
Or we can say that if they fail to maintain and it's adversely affecting our portion, that we can not only go in, we can contract with somebody to go do the maintenance, and they will have to pay the bill.
That's right. Yep. That's how most of the agreements are drafted. Yes.
Hey, moving on to another one. You talked about, and you showed the rendering that showed the pad building. You referenced that it was 40 feet high, which per table 2 in Article 4, that meets the one standard for height, but the other is that it be 3 stories. And you say it's 3 stories on top of a commercial story. So how does that meet the requirement that it can't be more than 3 stories?
I'd have to look at the requirement for 3 stories, Jeff. That's something that we've kind of struggled with throughout the project. So if there's a requirement for only 3 stories, we're going to have to review that, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. It's in table 2, article 4 of the zoning regulation. So it's under max height and it has 2 requirements, 40 feet being one, the other is 3 stories. And in fact, that also has some bearing or is reflected in the comments that we got from the fire chief with respect to the height requirements and whether also, well, he asked another question, which is to confirm the turning radius, the largest tower truck that, Barrington, Dover, Rochester, or Durham has. So that's another issue. I don't know if you've seen the fire chief's comments or not.
Yes, yep, and the turning template's not a problem. We do that all the time, so we can.
Okay, within the zoning regulations, so does this qualify as a planned use development?
I don't believe so. I think this is just a mixed use development.
All right. But can you go back to the rendering again?
The graphic?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so in that area, if you go up to where the residence is on the northwest side or southwest corner of that line or that row of residences, it's at the back of the parking lot behind the pad. So there's a requirement 4246 that there will be visual screening between the non-residential area and the residential units. So that's an area that I think you need to address. I won't put you on the spot about what to do about it now, but if you in that particular area, according to our regulations, there's supposed to be some kind of visual barrier there. So you ought to be, prepared to address that. Okay, I think obviously, there's all kinds of impervious surface calcs and so on and so forth that need to be done. So
yeah, absolutely.
That'll come with the final plans. All right, I think that's the end of all questions that
All right, anyone else?
Jamie, I have a question for Chris. It's Marcia.
Please.
Yes, can you just briefly kind of describe what would entail with some of the maintenance for the stormwater for the roadway and stuff? Just an idea, what our highway department might have to do.
So the roadway itself will be a closed system, so we'll need to start considering how to clean out catch basins and the sumps that those have. So that's one maintenance consideration. And then depending on how this lays out in design, whether or not the gravel wetlands are part of the municipal or town roadway and responsibility, the gravel wetland really needs very little maintenance. Needs to make sure that it is weeded, on a fairly regular basis and that there isn't sedimentation of the pond. But gravel wetland is really one of the lowest maintenance intensive BMPs that we use now. It's one of the reasons we chose it for the site, as well as its removal rates for nitrogen and phosphorus. But other than that, snow removal, as the highway department discussed in the past, if you're going to start requiring sidewalks in these types of projects, you're going to need to consider on a long-range plan how you're going to clear those sidewalks. So just things like that should start to be considered as the town center starts to grow.
Thank you.
Jeff, you had another question?
Yeah, I did. Hey, while we're on the subject of sidewalks, so I think on the plans, you've got the sidewalk that's running up on the east of Community Way, correct?
Yes.
Okay. the other couple of things to think about, I think, is you were talking about how you would have pedestrian traffic that would come out of the residences and down to the pad site. But that means they're actually going to have to be walking, into an intersection of the entry to the pad site, and you got cars coming up and down the road. It might be give some thought to just making a couple of little connecting sidewalks from the south corner of the residences, the southwest corner that goes across that little green area, so that people don't have to walk out in the middle of an intersection to get to the pad site.
Yep, understood.
Yeah. So think about pedestrian access down there. You don't necessarily, people don't want their kids walking out right into that T right there, or
right.
At
least provide a small spirit sidewalk for refuse, just so somebody can stop, look, and then continue on walking.
Yeah, and obviously there ought to be some marked off crosswalks in there somewhere, so that you don't, the same thing. If you have people coming out and to get over to the sidewalk that's on the east side of Community Way. So how do people get over there? So there's going to have to be some crosswalks and markings so they can get over and access that.
Yes.
Is that what your cursor is on right now? Is that a crosswalk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have one planned internal cross here. And as we develop the plans further, we may look at another internal cross down here, and maybe an extension of some walks in this area also.
Yeah, or maybe down on the south side of High Point, where to get, from High Point down to that where the intersection is of High Point and Community Way, so they can get across the street there without walking out in traffic.
Right.
Thanks.
All right. Board, have any more questions before we open it up?
Well, at some point, I hate to be a broken record, but shouldn't we accept the application for a design review?
I suppose we can.
I make a motion to accept application 235-1.1 and 3-TC-21 for design review.
I second that.
Motion by Jeff Brand, seconded by Steve Diamond, James Jennison, aye. Donna Masucci,
Masucci, aye.
Steve Diamond,
Aye.
Jeff Brand.
Brand, aye.
Motion carries to accept the application for design review. All right, if the board has no further questions, we'll open it up to public comment. If we have anyone out there, it's *6 to unmute your phone. We'll click on the mute button, and if it gets congested, raise your hand. If not, just feel free to speak up. No questions? All right, hearing none, I'll close public comment. Do we have more questions from the board?
I have to say that it's not a question, but yeah, I guess this is kind of what I had envisioned we were talking about when we were talking about town center development, that we would have this high density housing, the pad site, with the residences above a commercial offices or building activities. So, this kind of, I don't know. It's hard. We've discussed this many times about, well, what was town center going to look like in accordance with the master plan and the town center plan that we had. And that, I don't know. I guess my feeling is this sort of looks like what I had envisioned it would look like if we ever got there.
I would agree. This seems to fit closely to what the Sharretts had produced through all the public sessions. So I think this is within keeping with that. I see Donna's got her hand up. Donna, you got a question?
Yes, I mean, it's a great pad, all right. I was just wondering, I had a different vision. I was thinking more of an invite of walking, like from the Christmas Dove, Kayla's Country Store. This to me is an invite to walk our town. This is more or less drive in, go to whatever is housing in on that pad. I was more envisioning something like Dover or Portsmouth, and I know we're not Dover or Portsmouth, but in town where you have the line of stores with the bedroom, the apartments on top. So this was really, I wasn't visualizing this truly, and I'm kind of wondering how that'll play out with the town people.
Hey, Donna, can I add something for that? Of course, it doesn't show, there will be a street front if you connect everything, but one thing that's unique to Barrington that will never be like a Dover or something is the fact that we have the septics and everything, and it automatically is going to spread things out. You're not going to have buildings connected all the way down the road because we just don't have we have constraints in other ways. So it's utilizing the lot, and it won't be what you were thinking of. We just can't physically do it because of the septics to have all these buildings side by side all hitched together. It just won't happen. They'll be more spread apart. That doesn't mean, that being said, we're installing sidewalks, so it will be walkable. There'll just be more space in between, I guess, is the theory of it.
Okay.
I don't know, Chris may be able to add something, but I just think there are constraints by the fact that we don't have municipal water and sewer that into play.
I do see that, but I also see we have townhouses there that are lined up side by side that have a well, and definitely they have a septic somewhere. So if you took the top floor off those houses that you have proposed there, and you put little shop signs in the front of the first floor and had apartments on the top, wouldn't that be an equal to what we're seeing right here as far as the townhouses?
And yeah, he was saying like there would be this is their option for this particular chunk of land. The land adjacent to it, they're probably going to have to do something different. They use their density for homes that they were allowed on their variance in this particular way. But this isn't the end of this. This is the beginning. There's going to be more build out as time goes by. So this isn't the be all and end all. You have to remember the next group they do is probably going to look a lot different. You know, that may, like Chris was mentioning, having the commercial on the bottom floor. So this just happened to be what they chose to do with the density they were allowed under the zoning ordinance.
Okay, I agree, Chris. So when you go into a house, I'm looking at this town as a house. It's our house. It's Barrington. We're inviting the public in. When you go into a house, I've always been told that the foyer, the entrance, is the most inviting part. This is our foyer into our community, into our village. Why not have it look more colonial? You know, I don't know. I guess I'm having a different vision. I look at it and go, okay, I know we need growth. We do. I'm 100% with that. Okay, I'm not against that, but I'm like, oh my gosh, can we do it a little more softer? You know, a little bit more countrified. And I know I don't know all of it. I really admit to that, but I'm looking at it as somebody that has a little bit of knowledge of the planning board, but also am a citizen of Barrington.
I see where you're coming from, Donna, and I'm with you on that. This is an unusually sincere effort, I think, but it is not quite exactly what I was picturing, or the commercial integration is not quite as much as we're officially calling for.
So, just, to clarify, and Chris, I see a hand up. I just want to try and throw something out there. So, Donna, I just want to clarify your point. You would like to see more commercial on all those townhouses out back as well, but I don't know how that rectifies with a softer version. My only understanding is that you'd never get if you put commercial in all those buildings, you'd never have enough businesses to occupy them all, and they'd just be empty without having the density of residential. So, that's the weighing factor the only one that I see that justifies it. But if all those residential houses were more like the big building up front, is that more your vision? I'm just trying to get a better understanding.
My vision is more of, you're coming off the Christmas stuff. You're coming off, just picture, right? You're coming into our town. You have Caleb's and the Elf Maid on the left. You have the little Yankee shop there, and you've got the Christmas stuff. Now you go into the Christmas stuff, and I personally feel it should be those little shops on this first phase, and to kind of bring them in. To me, again, I'm not speaking for anybody else. It would be like, oh, look at the Christmas stuff. As I, go down, and then I see that building to the left, I'm like, okay, what happened to the cute little New England quaint town of Barrington? That is, again, that is just my idea. So if you put a couple of those, and I'm not like you, Jamie, I'm not a contractor, or I have no idea what poor Chris goes through all these things. But if you had the little houses, the little shops, and it doesn't have to be 100 of them. I know that. I know the economy. I know the people. We need a little coffee shop, blah, 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 all that. Just a few for the start to kind of like bring them in, bring the people in when they're walking at the Dove, and they walk in, they go, oh, look, there's a coffee shop. Let's have some coffee, or some little quaint boutique, and a little, tables maybe that people could sit at, and you have a little bakery. That's what I'm looking at, and then bring it in with that big pad, as you go further down the road. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah. And Chris can talk more on this, but I think they're further back, and there's two sites in front of that. And
But
fingers
why can't
crossed.
you have a bakery and a coffee shop in the lower floor of that pad?
Well,
I think you will with the density of housings. That's what's going to bring that bakery and coffee shop in.
Right.
But to Donna's visual point, I think the hope is that the density behind here, it's further back off the road, that there's two sites in front of it, and hopefully that quaintness will carry down to Christmas Dove, and you'll get that build up before you hit this one, even though this one's being built first.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Fingers crossed.
And then you got families. You have families with children, and you've got people with bicycles. So they want to take that Sunday ride down there, and they want to stop at that little bakery shop or have a little, cup of coffee, or newsstand. That's what I'm looking at, is the invite. Here we are. Invite us in, and then put all that other stuff in the back.
I think the other stuff is the stuff that's going to invite you in. That's the stuff in front, though. That big building in front, that first level is all the shops. That's what people are driving down there. Just, for me personally, and I'm not arguing for it. I'm just it's like when I go down by Bill Doobie Ford, and you look at that development, it's the same. It's a very similar feel to me. You drive in, and there's all the shops on the bottom, and if it's done right, it can be inviting. And because I think it's further down the road, I think it's not right in your face. It's not on the main road, but I mean, to me, I like it's appealing to me, the building itself. It could be on the front road, for my opinion, but.
And that's good. If you look at the malls aren't being used anymore. What's going on? These little places where you can just drive in, and you can go in front of some store and jump in, or some restaurant, jump in and jump back out. That's what I'm looking at. I see that big box with all these little stores in it. So somebody pulls up to it. It's like a mall. It's like a friggin' mall.
See, I don't see that, Donna. I don't envision that. Maybe you're looking too much into what the rendering is, but that's what I mean. I'm seeing this divided and having these little small shops.
So
I mean,
I-
you can't build a 300-year-old building, you know what I mean? But I see what you're saying. I guess I don't look at it as quite as hard as I see these little shops going in there, especially we could use, like you said, we definitely could use some place to get coffee and whatnot.
Chris, you've been waiting patiently. Thank you. I'll let you weigh in.
Oh, poor old Chris. I'll wait. So, so when we come back, we're going to have quite a bit more detail on how this building lays out, and I think we'll make a point of having a much better view, a streetscape view of what the front of this building really looks like, because I can kind of see as you're looking at my desktop, which is not helpful. Come on. Hang on. Oh my goodness. There we go. So as you're looking at this color rendering, you're looking at a big brown box, and that's really, I understand what you're looking at there, but as you look at what we're trying to create in this streetscape view, we are trying to create small users that come in and out of these buildings, because the large box retailer, they don't really exist. That's not really what this project is going to be about. And we are trying to create that streetscape appeal so that you've got those small quaint shops here at the front of the site. So I think some of this is we need to just provide you some more information on how that's going to lay out. But secondly, as Marcia was pointing out, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Jamie, you're like frozen on screen. That's why I asked.
All right.
So as Marcia was trying to point out, we have to mix the town center view of downtown Dover and downtown Portsmouth with what a quote downtown Barrington would look like. And that's what we've really tried hard to do here, is create a situation where you have a good streetscape, you have good users, but you also have a rural feel to it with a rural nature to it. And the one thing that we do need to keep in mind is that this is really one of the first dominoes to fall. We struggled hard with, do we put together a comprehensive plan for the entire site and try and engineer the entire site? Or do we compile what we think we can tackle within the next 18 months for construction and build out, and then come back to you with a design shortly after we finish this design with how the rest of this would lay out. And as Marcia's pointed out, you will see more mixed use buildings that create more commercial space and create more of a streetscape appeal. But we can't have a Point Place here in Barrington. It's too big. It's too massive. I don't even think the chief would know how to deal with a fire in a building like that. So we have to balance that type of project with where we are geographically, and balance that against some of the things that Marcia's pointed out. We have wells, we have septics. More importantly, we have topography. Those other two places have very little topography to worry about. Barrington, we have a lot of topography that we have to deal with. And because of that, we have a lot of stormwater things that we have to concern ourselves with. So inherently, this town center will act, I think if it's designed properly, act like a town center, but it will be more spread out. You will have more elbow room between the different users throughout the site. But I think it's really, really important. And I'm not just saying this to get on a soapbox, but I think it's really important to keep that pedestrian connectivity for that very reason. And as I was out surveying this, I very quickly realized this community trail, sees a lot of action. And if there's a way that we can somehow tie our project to that community trail, I think it will drive a lot of foot traffic and potential business right into the Christmas Dove and into our project site. And that is important to me, and it's important to the applicants as well. They don't want to create a bunch of dead space. They want a town center that thrives. And so whatever we can do to ensure that that takes place on a human scale and at a human level is what we're going to try and do.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say, my only perspective, I would say, the only thing that I don't care for seeing more of is the townhouse style home. I was hoping, fingers crossed, that we were gonna see like a nice adjoined single family type home looking layout. I've got up to my ears in the big townhouse stretches. I know they're convenient, but that was the only thing I had envisioned, more of a Wisteria Lane type close single family home looking in my mind. But I see Jeff and Steve have their hand up, so we'll give Steve a chance to talk first.
Thank you. What Donna was saying, colonial style. I mean, obviously you can't make something that is 400 years old, but you can approximate the style. And one way of doing that is to have things be, so what Chris did, it was listening to us quite well in breaking up the boxes so they don't look like one big box, staggering the structures, using different colors, using different shapes within the larger structure. And that's great for aesthetics, but it's still pretty big boxes. So if it were a little bit more of a colonial style and broken up physically, even if it was only 10 feet between some of these structures, that would be one way of doing it.
Jeff?
Yeah, something we've discussed several times, and I know is near and dear to Marcia's heart is, so can you discuss how you're going to address housing with respect to older people and people with disabilities? I'm looking at these rows of townhouses with garages in the basement. The living spaces are on the second and third floors. So what do you do about people that it's advantageous to have, the bedroom on the main floor, easy access? Can you address that?
This application doesn't really address that. We understand that there's a shortage in that type of housing, but quite frankly, based on some of the slopes that we have on site, that type of housing really doesn't fit specifically in the area where we are building these townhouses. There are other flatter areas of the site, and we can look at and revisit potentially trying to utilize those areas in the future. As far as disabilities, this structure, the big building, or the bigger building, 8,500 square foot building, that will have to meet Fair Housing Act and ADA requirements. So we will need to have accessibility inside of that structure for that type of housing also.
So the big building up front would most likely have elevator access. Can I assume that, or is that?
I want to say yes, but I don't want to commit to that because I know there are other ways around the ADA stuff. So when we think of elevators, I guess what I'm trying to say is it may not be a lobby style elevator to get to the second and third floors for ADA access. There may be special ADA routes that need to be taken for those housing units, but it will have to meet the Fair Housing Act.
Gotcha. Donna, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. I just have one question. It's probably to you, Jamie. I thought we weren't supposed to have 3-story condos. Didn't we just go through that with Irving? Or is that totally different?
Yeah. No, Jeff alluded to, well, we can have 3-story. They have to meet the height requirement in 3 stories. If I'm not misspoken, it's the 4th-story Jeff brought up on the front building that may be an issue, right?
Okay, so I just want to say, Chris, I think you're the balls. I think you're awesome. If I ever had $1 million, I'd have you design me the best ever. And I'm just telling you my feelings, and I'll respect anything you bring up.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, the requirement in town center is 3 stories and 40 feet. Those are the 2 height requirements.
All right. All right, I've got nothing else. Anybody else?
Did you get, I mean, Chris, are there questions you have for us or things that we haven't discussed?
No, not at all. This is precisely why we go through this exercise. We try and provide a sufficient amount of information to spur this type of conversation on a design review level, and then me and my staff go to work and we try and put all the details together so that as I get a Jeff Brand zoning compliance review at the next planning board hearing, I don't look silly.
And
you would expect nothing less from me, Chris.
Oh, no, not at all.
And you've got the comments from Chief Walker and others.
Yes,
So
sir.
I don't have to read those off, right?
That's correct.
No, I would like to I would like to reiterate what Donna said. Chris, you and your firm, you come in with design reviews. You come in with a good picture, but still you listen to what we have to say. And I've seen extensive modifications based on our comments, as well as a further assessment of the sites, like up on Meeting House Road. So that is very much appreciated.
Well, thank you.
Jamie,
Yes.
it's Marcia. Just on this one, we need to make sure the board remembers to vote to close the design review.
Thank you. I was gonna ask that to Mr. Barry next. Is that your wish to close design review, or are we coming back with a second iteration? Or are you coming back close?
Nope.
All right.
No, go ahead and close it. And we'll go to work.
All right. So we will entertain a motion to close the design review.
I make a motion to close the design review for application 235-1.1 and 3-TC-21.
I second that.
Motion by Jeff Brand, seconded by Donna Masucci. James Jennison, aye. Steve Diamond,
Aye.
Donna Masucci,
Suchi, aye.
Jeff Brand.
And I.
Motion carries. Design review is closed. Look forward to seeing what you have in the future.
All right, great. Thanks for everybody's input. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You know, bye-bye.
All right, reports. Let's do the minutes real quick before I forget. Does anybody have questions, comments, corrections?
Yep. Hey, at line 9 at the bottom of the first page, could I get my name spelled correctly, please?
If you must. Anything else? Let's have a roll call vote to approve the minutes as corrected. James Jennison, aye. Steve Diamond,
Aye.
Donna Masucci,
Aye.
Jeff Brand.
Brand, I.
Minutes are approved as corrected. All right, reports from other committees or unfinished business.
I just have one thing before, so I don't forget. In speaking with Connor, we were thinking, as opposed to going right to the attorney with questions, to the town would be willing to pay for, I guess they can arrange for some 2-hour training blocks through the municipal association in regards to, especially where we're going to have a couple of new board members, and just to bring that up and see if you guys would be supportive of us arranging for these trainings.
I think it'd be good, good time.
Yep.
Are you thinking of doing it during a meeting, like a workshop, or another time?
I think we can do it. I've got to ask Connor the specifics. It was his idea, actually, to see. I mean, it would be the most convenient if we could do it during one of your regular meetings. I mean, that's, usually.
Right. All right. Yeah, I'm for it. Anybody else opposed?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea.
I'm for it. I would like to meet with the attorney also.
Yeah, I think what Connor was thinking was we could do the workshop to discuss Barrington specific zoning things like the scattered and premature, and if anything arises out of that that we want specific counsel on, then the next step would be going towards our own attorney. That way we're a little bit more focused and have specific questions maybe. My understanding what his thought process was, Marcia?
Yeah, and I was thinking a lot of questions may get answered just going through the training. I think is part of what he was thinking.
Or get us thinking about other questions we want to ask. It may open up, may create more questions than answers.
Always.
Right. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. So yeah, whenever we can try to get as many board members, I guess, present as possible. I know can't really do much about the power being out, but all right. Anything else?
Jeff, you wanted to let him know where we are?
I was going to say, I was just unmuting. First off, on the engineering selection committee, we met last Wednesday. We did interviews with we had narrowed down from 12 firms to 3 firms to do interviews. We got the interviews done on Thursday afternoon. They were pretty interesting. And then we have a rating sheet. We've all submitted, we should have already submitted those to Connor, who's tabulating the results. Tomorrow afternoon, we will have a meeting to review the results, and we'll discuss what our recommendation is to the select board. I propose, seeing as it's the select board's job to make that selection, not the committees, that we rank the 3 firms and offer them as to what our ranking is. I've also said we ought to give them the comments that Connor compiled from the check of references, along with our rating and the response to RFQs for those 3 firms. And then, so we should be giving it to the select board so that they can discuss it at their next meeting.
Do you know when that meeting is, Jeff, in case anybody wants to?
I think it's the 8th of March, isn't it, Marcia? It's a week from today.
Are they the same week as us or
Yeah.
alternating?
I can't remember.
I believe the 8th of March is the next select board meeting.
All right. So if anybody's interested in seeing how that goes, to
Yep.
tune in or check the website for dates.
Okay. With that business out of the way, another couple notes. I just happened to be watching, I don't know if anybody had been watching the news lately, but the former president's casino in Atlantic City was dynamited and felled this past week. And there's a big debate about what is going to be developed, or what the land's going to be used for, where the Trump Tower or the Trump Casino formerly was. I bring this up because it was interesting that they have they had an interview with one of the planning board members. That planning board member, he's been pushing for them to do some development that isn't related to casinos or gambling, but rather a community development, community use. And in the course of talking about this, they said, hey, because you have been pushing this, haven't there been some people, particularly in the business community, that were trying to get him fired from the planning board? And he said, yes, indeed, there weren't people happy that he was pushing that particular vision. But he said it kind of baffles me because he said, here I am in an unpaid position and they're trying to fire me. And I don't know, that just struck me that the members of the planning board in Atlantic City, which is, 10 to 100 times larger than Barrington, they don't get paid either. They're volunteers also. So it seems that's common for all planning boards, regardless of where you are. And the last note I'll make is I will not be present for the next meeting. I'll be up Maine helping my mother.
I didn't know if you were trying to say that you're trying to get me fired, Jeff.
No, No, I just thought, really? I mean,
I'm
when you
joking.
think about the planning, but you think about a city the size of Atlantic City, and the planning board members are volunteers, just like we are.
Oh, we live in a canceled culture, Jeff. You don't like what you hear, you try to stomp it out, right?
Well, I just thought the fact that a city of that size has unpaid
Get paid.
planning board, it's just amazing to me.
True.
Other planning boards in the news, I believe it's up in Vermont, there was a town where someone decided to start their own gun range. And since they weren't charging admission, they felt like they didn't need any sort of planning oversight. And volunteer town officials were getting a lot of death threats. So there's a bit of drama of planning in the news in New England that you might want to know about. In other news, regional planning, the resiliency committee, what I've been looking at very quickly, the best case scenario for how much you can conserve of water by limiting lawn watering is 40% of your overall use. And the regulatory environment is structured to only restrict watering lawns. So there is no mechanism currently legally to enact restrictions on use beyond that would make sense potentially in a more severe drought. So what I'm trying to do is prod the head of DES and others to think that through. And that's beginning. Portsmouth that had a system where every other day you're allowed to water. So it's still in the same paradigm, but they're escalating the approach, the vision a little bit about an escalating series of rules to make sure you don't end up with absolutely nothing. Now,
Can you
places?
I was gonna say, can you regulate private wells as you can public water?
Well, public water has more regulation, but it turns out that some of these community systems, like Emerald Way down towards Route 4, these are the areas that have the biggest problems, or have had some of the biggest problems up until now of having to enact mandatory water use restrictions. So it's not necessarily just a municipal, Portsmouth, they have an incredible amount of use, but they also have an extraordinary supply. So they're actually in fairly good shape. It's places out here that could have more issues.
Jamie, actually, I think by ordinance, when Dover adopted their water restrictions, it applied to individual wells too. They had to. It's all drawing from the same aquifer.
I just didn't know if there was some riparian rights that you were violating by, same with airspace and water space underneath your property.
Yeah, no, I think they did it legally.
Yeah.
Man, Kevin's, it bounced back. I would be more concerned about Portsmouth's water supply. I saw that reservoir.
Yeah.
I would not be looking at that for anything.
Especially from where they don't take within their own borders, They're really using somebody else's water, if you look at it that way.
It all comes from the same watershed in the end.
Indeed.
Yep.
And Marcia, I was looking at some old notes. Cedar Creek. So I heard, was it you I heard it from, that they were having some issues with the Superfund site, the Swains Lake Water District, as far as Cedar Creek?
Cedar Creek is all on the water supply now. It's not, it was removed. See, when it was created, it was on wells. And then they found that the wells started to draw contamination. So a few years ago, I was hearing part of that. They came through and changed it all over completely to be part of the Swains Lake Water District. And then we also, on top of that, the board brought forth an amendment to the zoning ordinance, one that increased the size of the Swains Lake Water District area and also put in regulations that you could not develop any new wells in that restricted area. So now it has two layers, and that was brought forth by working with DES, with Ford. It was when Tony Gaudiello was chair. It was a huge effort to kind of limit very much any future development of wells in that area.
They were made to cap those wells, weren't they?
I believe so. There's wells that the wells,
Just-
yeah, they,
just- Yeah, they had to cap them to stop them from spreading that.
yeah.
I took a look at the last 5-year review that the EPA did on this, and just the direction of flow and what the topography is. Do you know if there's been any testing on Sherborne? Because that's one of the directions it's going, and it's the same topography, same level.
I can imagine, because that's part, I mean, oh, is that one over? Because I know, right, what is the one?
Over in
next-
south. It's south
Yeah.
on.
I think they have done a lot because there was so many involved. I believe things are not, because we don't have those wells sucking it anymore. That took care of the issue.
What was the nature of the contaminants?
Let's say they
Dioxin and
predated
VOC.
me. Yeah, they predated me. I think it started in like
The lo-
late 50s.
The long story, yeah, my understanding of the story is there was an employee who worked for Ford Motor Company, and they allowed him, whether they permitted him or he took him anyways, to bring home, petroleum byproducts, oil, whatever. And he was storing them in his garage, and eventually those storage containers deteriorated and leached into the ground for years and years and years. And it wasn't until they discovered the contamination, and Ford, I don't know the lawsuit and all that stuff, but I think Ford paid for that monitoring and they're still involved.
Still are.
Yeah, to the
Yeah.
best of my knowledge.
When's our
Yes.
next meeting?
16th, right?
Is it? I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Yes, it is on the 16th.
All right.
That's
Well,
all
if
I
that's
have.
it, yeah, if that's it, a motion to adjourn to the 16th.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
Motion by Jeff Brand, seconded by Donna Masucci. Steve Diamond,
Aye.
James Jennison, aye. Donna Masucci,
Aye.
Jeff Brand.
Brand aye.
I want to take the opportunity before everybody goes to thank Candace and Buddy for joining us. Hopefully we didn't scare you off, and we'll get you sworn in hopefully by next meeting, and you'll be able to participate, and look forward to having you on the board.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Take care.
All right,
Bye.
have a good
Good to
night,
you.
everybody.